Hi, I'm Dorian Lamb, and welcome to Start with the Close in Mind. As an owner of a title company and a seasoned real estate professional, I've seen firsthand how focusing on the close is the key to getting the results you want. What I've learned over the years is that this principle doesn't just apply to real estate, it applies to business, strategy, and life. Each episode, I'll share the tools, insights, and real-world experiences, both the wins and the lessons learned, that have helped me and others achieve our goals. I will also bring on some of the most successful business minds across industries to uncover how they approach deals, decisions, and success by starting with the close in mind. Welcome to Start with the Close in Mind. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Start with the Close in Mind. Today is a very special episode for me. It is a very close and dear friend, Jarrod Guy Randolph. I liken him to a real serial entrepreneur. I'm just going to name names. It's going to sound like an alphabet soup, but between JGR Capital, Bespoke Global, Headliner Dinner Series, a box fight, Vestry Partners, and now the founder and creator of the Buying Favor Framework. I am gladly introducing Jarrod Guy Randolph. Jarrod, welcome to the show. Give me a little background about you right now and what you're focused on.
My pleasure, Dorian. Thank you so much for having me. I'm ready to talk about keeping the close in mind. So I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years. I think almost 10 years of that, you and I have known each other. So we've grown a lot over the last decade. And my main career has been real estate, and I've ventured into other things, which have been blessings. And I'm not going to say curses, but one of them put me $1.8 million in debt, which I had to climb out of in 2015. Did successfully. But over the years, I've learned a lot as an entrepreneur. Unfortunately, I can't help myself. So it's been a wild ride, but I've done many things, from working with very prominent developers in New York, selling over $2 billion in real estate, raising over $300 million in capital, put me on Forbes 30 under 30 list. And the list goes on, but there were trials and tribulations and triumphs. And now we're moving forward with a new platform where I'm helping other entrepreneurs avoid the mistakes that I made over my 25-year journey so they can grow their businesses and become more profitable.
Yeah, trials and tribulations is a nice way of putting it. You know, coming out of holes, like you mentioned, seems like a skill that you must develop as an entrepreneur. So for those who are scared of that, stay away. For those who embrace it, this is definitely the show for you. And it's just part of the life of an entrepreneur. And, you know, Jarrod, I actually feel like it's more than 10 years and we've been through a lot. So, you know, between just growing together, being a mentor and being an advisor to me, and then also just seeing the platforms that you have created. As you know, I'm in support of that in more ways than one. And, you know, it takes a very entrepreneurial, ambitious spirit to do that. And one of the things that I want to note about you is that, you know, typically when you see entrepreneurship, it's really siloed into certain industries. And with you, the difference is that it is and stems across many different industries, right? So, you know, I won't dive into that right now and spoil any of the insight that you have, but it's really varied from like capital raising to actual a physical asset and furniture to, you know, real estate investments, and now with what I would call you know, a framework that people can really leverage that they don't really recognize that they have. So let's start from that point of view with regards to your journey. How do you approach starting and running different businesses? Like, give us the idea of just what is the inspiration of the businesses that you create, and then how do you create them?
Well, one of the things with being an entrepreneur is you have to actually figure out who you are in the process. So one of the great books that I read at one point in time was The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, where he talks about there's basically 3 personality types within a business. You've got the technician, you've got the manager, and you actually have the entrepreneur, who's the big thinker. A lot of people who are technicians, like, I bake really great pies and this restaurant that I work at is horrible, I'm going to start a pie shop. The problem is they're actually a baker. They're not a manager and somebody who can run a business. They're not really a big thinker who thinks entrepreneurially and can grow that business. So they end up in a place where they're just making the same salary that they made when they were working for someone else, and they don't have benefits, and they've got to make sure that they've got to hit the rent and all these other things, where they're actually just not successful at it. So what I realized when I stepped back is, like, I have a skill set. My skill set is connecting people and connecting the dots. And the fact that I have the ability to do that, I always build the teams around me to execute, and then I work for them in essence. I'd love to say that, I manage, I'm the ultimate. The truth is the CEO works for everybody else who works for them. And if you get over your skis or your ego's too big, that's a lot of times when you falter. I've done that in the past. When you falter and your company doesn't grow, or you fail because you don't empower the people who are working for you to excel and to grow. So that's a skill set I realized that I can take, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in furniture, whether it is in a roll-up strategy for home service businesses, whether it's rolling out the platform now, buying F.A.V.O.R as a relationship operating system that we're having. We have cohorts, we have classes, we have things teaching entrepreneurs how to capitalize on the relationships they have now. I can work in any field. It could be cosmetics, it could be auto parts and garages, because I know my skill set is bringing the right people together. So as an entrepreneur, identify that before you go into a business, so you at least know the gaps you need to fill so you can build a successful business.
That's great. So what you spoke to was foundationally having the ability to connect dots, right? And
Yeah.
for me, connecting dots is also a skill that I've found has been very helpful to me. And it's also at the core, because ultimately what connecting dots is about is showing that you can understand the different steps or the different parties or the different roles that
Uh-huh.
either companies or people play, how you could connect them, right? So it essentially is, to me, problem solving, right? And back in my consulting days, with management consulted, it became discovery. What are the facts that we're dealing with? What's the
Uh-huh.
problem that we're trying to answer? And then in essence, dots, right? As you know, that the name of the show is Start with the Close in Mind.
Uh,
So in essence, it's how do we back into the result that we want? And you've done this now multiple times.
uh.
So in your mind, how does Start with the Close in Mind fit with your ventures? And when you launch, how much of that do you apply? What's the key to applying it?
So let's take one of my businesses, which is a current venture I'm highly focused on, and that's a payment processing business called Boxify. And what I did when I went into that business is I realized it could be a very lucrative business, but I connected the dots looking backwards. And what I mean by that is I figured out who I need in my circle to execute on a business successfully. What type of processes and procedures do I need to have in place to actually grow that business and grow it successfully and do it in a quick manner? And when I did that, it gave me clear insight to what was going to happen in the future. Human beings are super simple. We repeat the same patterns, we do the same stuff. So I looked at my businesses that maybe I got to like a 7-figure business and said, all right, within a 2-month or 2-year period, how do I take this to an 8-figure business? In a 3-year period, how do I take this to a 9-figure business? The beginning of this year, we hit 8-figure valuation for our company. And the way we did that was through our marketing. We realized that there's a lot of friction in the marketplace. There's a lot of competitors. So how do we get to a point where we can have consistent business coming in without fighting for it? I actually have a podcast also called 0 to 100, where we interview CPAs who have pretty substantial firms, and those CPAs come on the show, talk about ways that people can grow their business and become more profitable. But that's a lead capture for me. And that lead capture has led to 3 key partnerships with major CPA firms, which are top 50 CPA firms, where they have a total of 20,000 clients. We white label a payments product for them, and they just send us clients daily. So we're in the background. We're not consumer facing. I'm never going to the restaurant owner or the garage owner or the apartment owner and saying, let me do your processing. I
Right.
just talk to their CPA and they just send me business on a daily basis. So now my job became easy. However, it took me now, at that point in time, 23 years to figure out strategies like that. But I
Yeah.
connected the dots looking backwards, seeing what I did wrong. I have a great advisory board who keeps my head and focused straight as an entrepreneur, because we can be a little flighty at times. And we put in these policies, procedures, and principles that now we've got frictionless sales process where we just close business daily. You can do that in any business.
So you brought up a very important point there, and I'm going to come back to it. I want to divert a little, though, in something that you brought up, which is we have our board of advisors.
Mhm.
This is something I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs hear as advice, that being board of advisors, but also being part of networks that can be helpful to them. So masterminds or executive associations, there's a lot of them, though. There's a
Right.
lot. And
Right.
you get recommended quite a few especially if you're around entrepreneurs and business owners and are urged to join the ones that they're in. How would you go about it? What's your advice with regards to sifting through that?
Well, here's the challenge that most entrepreneurs have, and they don't even know that they have it, and especially the ones who have been super scrappy, the renegades, the mavericks. They've built a 7, 8 figure business, but they've done it by bootstrapping. They have an operating system like EOS. We both operate off of EOS. Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome operating system. They have financial management operating system like a Profit First. Then they've got their marketing operating system, their sales operating system. Problem is they don't have the relationship management operating system. That's what we've built with the Buying Favor operating system. Now, what does that mean? It means I don't have my phone in front of me because I'm on a podcast and I want to stay focused. Otherwise, it'll keep pinging me. But if you look at the contacts on your phone, you have millions of dollars of opportunity there that are sitting there dormant that you haven't tapped into. And by having a relationship management operating system, I don't mean a CRM and I don't mean the horrible reach out that people are doing that's automated on LinkedIn. By the
Yeah.
way, stop doing it. We all know it is automated. It doesn't work anymore. 2 years ago, because I tried it myself, you would get some bites. Now everybody's doing it. It doesn't work. So stop. It's a waste of money and really
Yeah.
annoying. So I digress. Coming back to the operating system. What's important is your ability to activate those relationships. Because Dorian, you and I and most of your listeners could stop meeting people today, right now. If we just connect the dots looking backwards, all of the people that we already have relationships with, they could propel us forward X if we spent more time developing those relationships. So before you check into that new mastermind, before you join that new networking group, you need to be engineering who you already have in your text messages, your email box, your calendar for the meetings and appointments that you didn't close the loop. And within a 6-12 month period, you literally could 2 to 5x your business.
Yeah. So going back to the CPA analogy where you created a show to speak with CPAs and then presented solutions to them, and that's kind of how you developed a lead funnel. To me, we're never always going to get it right
Right.
on our solutions, the methods and strategies that we present. But what you showed there is the ability, this is a skill as well in terms of calibrating. You need to take the time to assess whether or not something's working, to figure out the areas that it is working, and then either in the case where it doesn't work, actually have the nerve and the audacity to pivot, right? Because that can take a lot of gall given how much you promoted a certain strategy and hope that it will work. And then more importantly, because I think of just the positive of it is doubling down on the stuff that works, right?
Yep.
So we're going to dive directly into Buying Favor right now. What I'm hearing from you is through the years. So through the years of being a successful entrepreneur, what you have found is a particular skill that almost everyone has, right? Or let me say that differently. You found a particular skill in an asset that you already had, and you felt that it was right in front of you that you needed to create a system or a framework where you taught other people how to do it. So let's dive into Buying Favor, right? You just mentioned that in the phones that we have on the side, that when you're not on a podcast, that when you go through it, that in those contacts are actual value that you need that you have not actually either found or have capitalized on, and not to make it sound like a transaction, but you know what I mean in terms of just people you already know, right?
Yep.
One of the things as a business developer, entrepreneur is FOMO, that fear of missing out and always trying to get new contacts and always trying to propagate out new. But what you're saying is take pause and hone in on what you already have. So tell us about the Buying Favor framework and
So
give us
listen,
the insight on that.
everything that glitters is not gold. Everybody's swiping left looking for the next best thing. And the truth is you're probably not the next best thing. So stop swiping left. You have to find something and you have to work on it, because to build relationships like you and I have, I could pick up the phone and call Dorian and say, Dorian, I need help with X, Y, and Z. And that could be anything from, I need to borrow some money. I need your insight. I need to mail something to you. Will you pick it up for me? Because I can't get there and pick it up. I could get anything from you, and I would do anything for you in return, because we've spent the time building a deep relationship with each other. I'll give you an example. Everybody touts the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill as one of the great entrepreneurial mindset books. How to feel, how to think, what to do, the actions to take. There are 2 underlying messages that everyone misses 99.999% of the time. Number 1 is the success that the people in the book who he interviewed built they built it off of two things. One is a mastermind, two is their advisory board. It is the most consistent message. What is a mastermind? What is an advisory board? It's your peers or people, it's your peers, your mastermind. Your advisory board are people who have expertise in other fields that you know, like, and trust, who advise you on how to accelerate in your business. Both of those components are people. And the key thing is it's not another sales funnel. It's not another marketing expert, X, Y, and Z. It is focusing on calibrating the relationships that you already have. And the idea of buying favor, if you break that down, buying in terms of an exchange, favor by definition is an act of kindness. So it's an exchange of kindness. And favor is actually an acronym for your friends, your associates, vendors, organizations, and relatives. That's your F.A.V.O.R. In each one of those categories, there's 3 to 5 people who you could pick up the phone and they will help you with anything. The problem is we don't actually activate them. There was one of the gentlemen who's part of my cohort, great guy, name's Gideon. He owns a company where they are buying and he's growing a small boutique hotel portfolio. And I think he has about half a dozen. He wants to do more deals. Like, I don't know where to go to look for more deals. Maybe should I go to a broker or someone outside? I said, no, let's look at your F.A.V.O.R network. And I honed in because I knew the answer and I didn't want him to have to grasp for it. I said, let's hone into the vendors that work for you, that you have relationships. So a vendor is a third party that you've hired and you pay. That could be a marketing company. It could be a property manager, etc. You pay them, the check clears, they like you. Funnily enough, we never pick up the phone and ask them for help. So what I said to him, I said, call your property manager, because you have two different property managers, right? Call them and see if they know, because they're not just your property manager, they have a portfolio. See if they know of anyone who's looking to sell hotels. Guess what? He found a handful of deals overnight because he called the property manager. Remove the friction from the process. That's what buying favor does. It removes the friction from the process. And it's great for somebody who's an introvert, doesn't want to be in all these rooms, talking to all these people. They can just engineer through their F.A.V.O.R network the relationships that they already have. And I'll give you two key ways to do that. Number one, sit down with your EA, go over your calendar over the last 6 months and close the loops for all the conversations that you had. And you're going to look at half of them and go, oh my God, I'm so horrible at managing my time because I have so many open loops. I didn't send a document. I didn't complete a conversation, X, Y, and Z, and reach out to that person and say, hey, Susan, we spoke 3 months ago. I saw this article. It reminded me of the conversation that we had. I want to close the loop. Were you able to find that service provider? Did you move forward with someone? Do you still need help with X, Y, and Z? And then the second best thing to do is to look at your text messages. Just start scrolling. Who have you been talking with? Who have you been chatting with that you, obviously, if you're texting, you have a bit of a closer relationship with them? And ask yourself, I have a specific need right now. I have a problem I need to solve. Can any of these people potentially help me connect the dots? And it's so easy to just reach out to them and say, hey, you know what? You're an expert at this, Dorian, and I really appreciate and respect your opinion. Can you do me a favor? I'm looking for 2 introductions for X, Y, and Z for a lender in real estate. And it's a bit of a hairy deal. Who would you have me talk to? Hands down, Dorian's going to be like, oh, you need to talk to John and you need to talk to Michelle.
Yeah.
Get 2 opinions, see if they can put together a lending product for you.
That's fantastic. One of the things that you're describing there is also knowing what you want, right? Because, one of the pieces of advice you gave, and very good advice, is don't go on LinkedIn or social media and automate and use AI to speak for you. It just doesn't work, right? May have worked 5-6 years ago. AI didn't even exist then, but the automation did. It just doesn't work now. You just know. And the extrapolation of why I'm even mentioning that is because people have the urge to also not have a refined message when they do broadcast out to their network. So an unrefined message or an unrefined ask isn't going to get a response because they frankly don't know how to help you, right? So what's the advice with regards to even understanding what it is that you want? Which sounds like a strange question, but it sounds like you've done this multiple times with your clients in buying favor.
You're hitting the nail on the head. And this is the F.A.V.O.R formula. It's 4 simple steps. If you're going to reach out to someone, and this is, so, because a lot of people kind of get this anxiety about, oh my God, I have to do an elevator pitch. And if I don't spend 5 minutes explaining what I do, these people are not going to know what I do. And people get lost after about 30 seconds of you talking. So if you really want to solve a problem, the way in which you approach it is you look at your F.A.V.O.R network and you say, all right, who can I reach out to who can help me solve this problem? Start with the problem in mind. And the problem is actually the close, because you need to solve that to get to the next step. And you might have multiple closes in a process, but that one problem you've got to solve. So when you reach out to that individual who's in your F.A.V.O.R network, Give them context, be specific, make it easy for them to respond, and also remember to always reciprocate. So, what I mean by give them context, we'll talk about doing a real estate deal. Dorian, I've got a hairy deal with a bankruptcy attached to it that needs to be cleared up. I'm looking for a lender who can help me through this. So that's the context. In terms of the being specific, can you give me 2 or 3 lenders in Florida, because it's a Florida deal, who know the market there, who can at least give me some advice on how to look at this? And then easy, if you could just do a simple email introduction saying, hey guys, can we meet? That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Like that message is, I've given you context. I'm very specific on what I need. And I'm making it easy for you to make the introduction. And you already know the people if you're going to connect me with them. It doesn't need to be this long, drawn out intro. My intros now are, you two are awesome, a lot of synergy, connect.
Yep.
That's literally like, that is, you've gotten my introductions. Like, I don't need to BS. You both know me. I'm only putting you in the room because you can help each other. And then the reciprocation part of it, which is the key part, is, and Dorian, I want you to remember, if you ever need help, and you don't have to do it in the first message, but when you wrap the conversation, if you ever need help, I'm here for you. Please let me know.
Yeah. And, it is very important because not only you setting them up to get better at helping you, because when you're very specific, they'll just know right away if they can't help.
Yep.
And the other side of it, which is they can also tell you, I can't help, right? Because then you want to be able to not make someone feel bad that they can't help and move on and say, I completely get it. Because I think that's a misnomer in this aspect of connecting dots as well, which is that there's a feeling that if you do make the connect, that it must happen, right? You're trying to help someone and you're trying to give them or potentially give them something that can help them progress in getting to where they need in order to close. But you're not asking that person to actually close it for them. You're just asking for help in your example of buying favor, right? So there is this nervousness sometimes where when you make the ask or even when you get it. So let's say you send me a message and I respond to it, that sometimes there's this predetermined notion in someone's mind where it's like, oh, all right, whoever Dorian gave me is going to help solve the problem. But that's not the case. The work just started there. You're just opening doors, which is what this is all about, right? So in general, what's the ultimate vision though and message behind Favor? So we did cover it's in your pocket, it's in your contacts. And you did also cover, and it's a question that I have for you, that it's not CRM. So what is it?
So it's not CRM in terms of what we know as a CRM from a sales standpoint, where you have a bunch of emails in and you're pushing out flyers and emails to them. What Buying Favor is all about, it's a relationship management operating system, which helps entrepreneurs leverage the network that they've already built. So it is connecting the dots looking backwards. And we are all one relationship away. We're one phone call, we're one email away from the people that we already know. It's not about new. So it's getting you in the groove of actually just leveraging what you already have that are warm to hot relationships and connections that they would do anything for you.
Yeah. Sorry, this would be cut out, but my daughter's here. I'm almost finished. Okay. All right. So one of the things that I have heard before and that I feel this embodies, right, is there's a term called fishing for givers. And this is extending from something you said, which is to reciprocate. And what I think is key here is that you want to actually surround yourself with givers, right? And in order to be around givers, you must also give. And the idea here is when you fish for givers, you're going to make your refined ask across a group of givers who are already inclined to try to help. Not because they want something in return, but just because they want to help. And they're part of this group of people that are all trying to help each other without the expectation of something in return, right? Because just naturally as individuals, it's in the acronym of Buying Favor, right? Which is that if you were to go as far as to help me with an element that gets me to a close, I'm just going to naturally want to figure out how to help you as well, right? So
100%.
now it's just accelerated. So, one of the things about Buying Favor is that it's not just about all the names in your contact. It's about sitting down and figuring out, like you said, I think you said who else, get along with? I think there was like 3 things that you mentioned.
No, like and trust, because
no like and trust, right? And then I would add a component to that that have a penchant to give, right? That are not out there looking to optimize on every single action that you've done for each other, right?
Right.
It's look, we're in this together. We're looking to help each other grow, right?
Right.
So
It is it's no like and trust, and the reason that that is important is the first law of buying favor is to give, and then you earn the right to make an ask. But be careful with that ask. Don't just throw it out there. Don't
exactly,
use a low leverage ask for a high leverage person. And you can be very calculated on this, but calculated with people that you want to help. Because it's so funny. Sometimes people listen to this or they hear the concept of it and say it's manipulative. Well, the truth is that you're using people every day. And I don't mean using it from a negative way, but you're leveraging people every day and they're leveraging you. So within your favor network, why not just work with people that you know, like, and trust and have a relationship with? And be very focused, because if I benefit, they benefit. If they benefit, I benefit.
yeah,
So there's one of the gentlemen that I work with who has quite a large business, multi-million-dollar business, services veterans, helps them invest their VA funds into real estate to grow wealth for their families. And Dave said to me, I want to get a certification with the state that I'm in. I can go to this state agency. And I said to him, I said, you know what? Hold on, Dave. And this is where you start to do some high level stuff. I said, didn't you tell me that you have a relationship with a government official in your state? And it's funnily enough, he literally picked up the business card to the governor of the state. And he's like, you mean this guy? Because we were on a Zoom. And I said, yeah, that guy. I said, Dave, it's not your ask. You can very easily call the association at the state level. Why not call the governor? It's a great way to connect and build a relationship, and ask him how he would handle it. Because I'll tell you one thing right now, he's going to go, oh no, hold on, let me make that call for you. Because he services almost 800 veterans. And if the governor of the state can say, I helped an organization that helps veterans invest their VA funds in building wealth for their family through real estate, and they have 800 members, I helped 800 veterans
yeah,
get this certification, he gets reelected for that.
yeah,
You don't think you've bought favor with him because you allowed that to be his ask?
right.
And that was very strategic. It was calculated, but it's going to benefit your veterans. It's going to benefit the governor, and it's ultimately going to benefit you. Everybody wins. How's that manipulative?
Yeah. Look, I think that it just has stigma behind it, right? When you use words like manipulate or
Right.
whatever it is, sell or hard sell, it really is about influence, right? Robert
Mhm.
Cialdini, famously wrote Influence, and there's many different versions and iterations of that now. But it really is every aspect of life has some level of influence. As a
Yes.
parent, as a husband, as a business owner, I mean, we have a bunch of employees that we're always constantly, not in a negative way, but influenced to work in a better way, to contribute in a more positive way to culture, to contribute to the process of solving problems. It's all about, influence in that sense. And when you use a word like influence, it can have a negative connotation to it if it's used incorrectly.
Uh-huh.
So I want to highlight something you said, which is very important as well. But there is a boy who cried wolf, right? There is too much where your message. It's not that you're asking for too much; it's that your message becomes diluted because you've done it so many times in different ways. So you
Uh-huh.
do have to be careful about how you do go about asking for favor or asking for help, because it does reach a point where if you are just constantly reaching out for help,
Right.
that people don't really know when you really need the help, right? So
That's why, Dorian, the first law is the most important is give, and then you earn the right to make an ask. And it doesn't mean that you like, even though you might need to make an ask, I've been in positions where I was like, I need to close $250,000, $500,000 for a real estate deal, $1 million for a real estate deal. And I call the person who I know can write me the check. And then I hear something weird in their voice. And I was like, okay, what's wrong? Well, I'm having a tough time on a deal and I'm really focused on it right now and I can't seem to get it over the finish line. And I have to automatically go, shoot, I really need this money in the next 30 days, but let me see if I can help him. I says,
yeah,
all right, can I help you solve your problem? He says, well, were you calling me about? I says, don't worry about it. That can come. Let me help you. Let me pour into you and help you solve your problem. And even if you just make the effort, even if you don't solve the problem for them, you build your favor economy. You build more credibility with that person. And then maybe a week later, you make the ask once they've gotten through the mess that they were dealing with. So to your point, you have to be very careful about how you make an ask. But if you reciprocate and help other people, they are always aligned with you, and the law of reciprocation comes into play, and they want to help you the best they can.
Yeah. And also for those who are receiving the ask, right? This actually has happened to me through a mentor of mine, right? Where they were very honest and said, "This is not something I generally do, but for you I'll do it if you want me to." And it just makes me take pause. And at that point I said, "You know what? I'm not going to, pull the trigger on this one." And I respect the feedback. When I have something more substantial where I need your help, I'll reach back out, right? And take that as the
100%.
feedback, right? So
100%.
just for those who are receiving the ask.
I'll give you an example. I made an ask to a buddy of mine, Vishal, to introduce me for one of the dinners that we have coming up, which I've gotten a major internationally acclaimed author who's going to be our headliner for the dinner. And there's 18 people around the table. It's one particular figure in New York, media person. I want them to be at the dinner. And I asked my buddy, and he says, "All right, send me the ask." And I sent him the ask, and he goes, This is BS. This guy's not going to respond to this, and this is just not the way to approach him. Send it to me again." And he gave me some talking points, and I sent it to him again, and he goes, "Listen, you're my dog, but the reality is that I don't feel comfortable making this ask because I have a good relationship with him, but this would be one of the first bigger asks I've made of him. And number two, it's not conveying, I know what you do, but it's not conveying what you do. So I'm not comfortable sending this." And it was one of the coolest, most candid, not like, "Oh, let me see, I'll reach out," and then you kind of like brush it off and you don't do it. He actually gave me real time feedback. And I said, "All right, V, that absolutely makes sense." And truthfully, when I'm reading it, because we always, when we want to get to those big figures, we kind of do these elaborate things and we overthink it. And I was like, "You're right. This is probably not going to close or interest him." Now, I found another intro into this person where they're much closer relationship where he can just talk to him about it. So hopefully, fingers crossed,
Yeah.
I can get him to come to the dinner. But the candor is really important. And when in your favor network, you have real relationships with people, Dorian, they're going to do it. I've asked you for things before. You've asked me for things before. You'd be like, "Listen, I can't help you with that right now," or "That's not in my wheelhouse." That's fine. I move
Yep.
on and I'm not hurt over that.
Right. Right. And to take a neo-West term, open and honest, right? It's an ability. That's the point of the honing in on your network, because you want to be able to have open and honest conversations with them and not feel comfortable or uncomfortable.
Right.
So, all right, we talked about that. Let's start wrapping up though. Let's talk about your entrepreneurship. Let's talk about buying favor. I always like to ask this question. What is one thing, although you've been in multiple different businesses and now you have buying favor, you can answer it in more ways than one if you'd like. What's one thing that most people misunderstand about your role?
So my role as an entrepreneur, the misunderstanding is when you become an entrepreneur, you'll have this massive freedom. No, it does. It doesn't exist. People talk about having high level executive positions and stock options and the golden handcuffs. I mean, at least you have health insurance and that check comes in every week. As an entrepreneur, you got to pay for your own health insurance, which is a fortune. And that check is not promised. And sometimes that check comes in, but you've got to pay bills and you end up in the red. The truth is it's just not sexy. And that's the misconception. And even if you build a successful business, even if you have an exit, I have some of the entrepreneurs that I'm working on who are now working on new ventures and trying to connect the dots in their networks and build their favorite networks to accelerate their new ventures. They've exited businesses and all of a sudden go, "Oh, wait, I might have X number in the bank, which are 7, 8 figures, but I'm living off that money now because I now have no cash flow. And I never prepared for that because that was all the money that all that they had put all their time and energy into making that money. Then they cash out and they realize that, wait, I'm still not free because I can't just live off of that at 45 for the next 30 years of my life. I have
Yeah.
to do something else." So the reality is it can be super fun. I'm a bit of a masochist, so the thought of having a full-time 40-hour-a-week job, oh my God. But being an entrepreneur is really tough. So be ready for the ups and downs that come. However, the most important thing, this is why having masterminds, having your advisory board in place, your personal advisory board in place, is you have to lean on your network, on your favor network and groups within that to help you power through so you can build the success that you desire.
That's amazing. So there's a level of fortitude that is required in what you do that is oftentimes underrated. They just look at entrepreneur, successful, sold, cashed out, exited. What they don't realize is all the pressure's on you, all the risk is on you. Of course, you reap the benefits if you make it through, but even when you do reap the benefits, it's not sometimes what people think. right?
Yeah.
And in order to get through all that, it's really leaning in on the network that they've put all the years of, sweat and tears behind, and understanding how to leverage that network and buying favor, right?
Yes, sir.
So, Jarrod, thank you very much. Where can people find you? How do they follow Favor? Give us all the areas where they can find you.
There's two ways. One, if you want to hit me up directly, you can hit me up on my email, which is Jarrod, Jarrod, at buyingfavor.co.co. Or my Instagram, Jarrod_Guy, and that's Jarrod_GUY. Follow on social media because we every day are putting out great content that can help you as an entrepreneur connect those dots, buy favor, and build stronger relationships.
Jarrod, so you have been on my show. I look forward to doing other collaborations with you. Thank you very much for your time today. And for all those listening, let's figure out how to leverage your networks.